Hi class, who has heard of the story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas? Okay, a few of you. For those of you who haven't heard this story, can you make any predictions about what the story is about just by looking at the cover? Okay, it's about some sort of monster, someone who's looking like they're not up to any good. All right, those are all some very good predictions. Now, those of you in the class who have heard of the story, please make sure do not spoil anything in the book as I read it to you, because that is called a spoiler alert. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're gonna read How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were on too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Whoville down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early, and they rushed for their toys, and then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who, young and old, would sit down to feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. You kind of see the huge feast here. And then they do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They stand hand in hand and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas scene, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. Now, think about it. How can an idea be both wonderful and awful at the same time? Yes. That's right, because even if there's bad ideas, they can be calculated very well and really planned and thought out, but that still does not mean that they are good ideas. So that's what the Grinch came up with. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he clucked and he clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. But since the reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. But that did not stop the old Grinch. No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, then I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up. and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, well, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, then he snuck his head down and the fireplace flew, where the little Who's stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go." The Grinch stealing. What is wrong with stealing? Right, because it's not yours. And is it okay just to steal from people because you don't think the way they think, or you like the same things that they may not like? Of course, any form of stealing is wrong. So the Grinch should not be stealing their Christmas belongings. But he continues. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. And he stuffed them in a bag. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Bear with me. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up with the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. He stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought of a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Now, even though the Grinch did a tiny lie to Cindy Lou Who, is it still okay to lie to people? No. And do you think this little white lie hurt Cindy Lou Who? Why do you think it hurt her? Right, because any lie would hurt somebody. So we have to make sure that we stay kind, honest, and truthful. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in his house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh, pooh to the who's. He was Grinchy-lishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo. That's a noise, said the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused and the Grinch put his head to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. So even though the Grinch sold their Christmas belongings, the people of Whoville were still happy. Why do you think that is? That's right, because Christmas is so much more than just presents and flashy lights and Christmas cookies. Christmas is about celebrating the ones that we love and showing them that we care about each other. And of course, it's also about Jesus. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till the puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, and the Whoville say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he, himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beefs. All right, so we discovered by reading this book what Christmas meant to the citizens of Whoville, and most importantly, what Christmas meant to the Grinch. So now, what I want you to do is go back up to your desk, and I want you to get out a piece of paper and your crayons and markers, and I want you to draw me a picture of what Christmas means to you. It could be making Christmas cookies, it could be sitting with your family, it could be shopping, it could be when you go to church on Christmas Eve. I want to see what Christmas means to you through a nice, beautiful picture. And then I and your classmates can make those predictions. Go on.